Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into Hantavirus and the 2026 cruise ship outbreak. We are tracking a highly urgent, actively unfolding medical mystery here. I mean, it literally sounds like the plot of a Hollywood thriller, but sadly, it's very much a reality.
Okay, let's dive into this. 7 cases, 3 deaths, 1 cruise ship. Just picture it. Out in the middle of the ocean, a sudden cluster of severe respiratory illness just appears. Out of nowhere, 7 cases emerged, and within a shockingly short window, 3 of those individuals tragically died. 1 was left critically ill, and 3 others showed mild symptoms. It's a sobering reality that instantly put global health authorities on the highest possible alert.
To really grasp the gravity of the situation, we have to look at how rapidly this timeline escalated. On day 1, May 2nd, 2026, the World Health Organization is officially notified of this mysterious cluster of passengers falling ill. Fast forward just 2 days to May 4th, those 7 cases and 3 deaths are definitively identified. But the truly alarming part is the present phase, the ongoing response. Because this happened on a cruise ship, passengers were coming and going. The CDC literally had to step in immediately and alert state health departments all over the US to track down passengers who had already disembarked and gone home, way before anyone even realized an outbreak was brewing.
So what exactly is the invisible culprit behind this massive health mobilization? Let's step back from the ship for a second and look at the definition. The confirmed pathogen is hantavirus. Now, at its core, hantavirus isn't just a single virus, but an entire group of viruses carried by rodents. And when humans are unfortunate enough to contract it, it can cause severe, rapidly progressive, and, as we've seen, sometimes fatal respiratory and vascular disease.
And this brilliantly illustrates what makes this family of viruses so incredibly complex. It acts completely differently depending on where you are in the world. If you contract a strain in Europe or Asia, it typically causes hemorrhagic fever with renal syndrome, or HFRS, which primarily targets the kidneys and blood vessels. But if you encounter it in the Americas, it causes hantavirus cardiopulmonary syndrome, or HCPS. This version is a rapidly progressive condition that specifically targets and floods the lungs and the heart.
Now, if you know a bit about hantavirus, you might be asking yourself, wait, how on earth did a rodent virus spread among passengers on a luxury cruise ship? Well, the standard transmission rule is that humans usually get infected through direct contact with infected rodents, like the deer mouse, or by breathing in aerosolized virus shed in their urine, feces, or saliva. Getting bitten is actually pretty rare. It's almost always about breathing in contaminated dust.
Which brings us to the plot twist of this explainer, and really why this specific outbreak is so uniquely terrifying compared to standard variants. Get a load of this quote. The Andes virus is the only type of hantavirus known to spread person to person. Yeah, that changes everything. We're no longer just looking for a mouse hiding in a cabin, we are looking at a pathogen that has somehow figured out how to leap directly from one human host to another.
So the crucial point is understanding exactly how this person-to-person spread actually happens. Look, it doesn't spread as easily as the common cold, thankfully. The Andes strain usually requires close physical contact with an ill person, prolonged time in enclosed spaces, or direct exposure to their saliva and respiratory secretions. And when you think about those requirements, close physical proximity, prolonged time in enclosed spaces, it suddenly makes perfect, horrifying sense why a cruise ship is the absolute ideal environment for this specific strain to thrive.
Okay, before we go any further, I want to pause and give you some vital context because I know this sounds incredibly alarming. 890. That is the total number of hantavirus cases reported in the entire United States since surveillance officially began way back in 1993. So over more than 3 decades, we've seen less than 1,000 cases. Historically speaking, it's an incredibly rare disease.
Now, what's really interesting about this is the stark contrast in the stakes of the disease depending on geography. When we look at infections in Asia and Europe, the fatality rate sits somewhere between 1 and 15%, which is serious, sure, but look at the Americas. In the Americas, that fatality rate jumps up to a staggering 50%, literally a coin flip. This massive difference is exactly why health officials respond with such overwhelming force the second a strain in the Americas, like the Andes virus, is detected.
Let's move on and see how this builds silently within the human body. Because what makes tracking those disembarked cruise passengers so incredibly difficult is the deceptively long timeline. After Step 1, the initial exposure to the virus, a patient enters Step 2, the incubation period. For the Andes virus, this can last anywhere from 4 to 42 days. I mean, think about that. A passenger could leave the ship, fly home, go back to their job for an entire month, and feel absolutely fine before step 3, the sudden onset of devastating symptoms, potential lung damage, and shock even begins.
So, what do those early warning signs look like? You're definitely going to want to pay close attention to this. Early symptoms kind of mimic a severe flu or stomach bug. You're looking at fever, chills, fatigue, dizziness, nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea. But a major hallmark here is severe, generalized muscle aches. About half of all patients experience this intense aching, especially in the large muscle groups like the thighs, hips, back, and shoulders. If those early symptoms aren't caught and addressed, the disease rapidly progresses. Hantavirus pulmonary syndrome severely damages lung tissue. We're talking severe symptoms like aggressive pneumonia, severe respiratory failure, as the lungs essentially flood with fluid, and ultimately cardiogenic shock, which is where the heart simply cannot pump enough blood to keep the body going. It is swift, and it's absolutely brutal. Because the early symptoms mimic the flu so closely, doctors have to rely on highly specific medical diagnoses and lab tests. They're basically looking for hantavirus-specific IgM and IgG antibodies. Think of those as the chemical footprints your immune system leaves behind when it's fighting the infection. They might also look for a 4-fold increase in IgG antibodies or run a positive RT-PCR test to hunt for the actual viral RNA, the virus's genetic code, so they know exactly what they're up against.
But once the diagnosis is confirmed, we hit a bit of a wall. The bad news? Right now, there are absolutely no specific treatments, no targeted antiviral drugs, and 0 vaccines available for hantavirus infections. But, and this is a big but, the good news is that medical intervention still matters immensely. Early supportive care and immediate referral to a complete ICU can drastically improve survival. It's all about giving the body the ultimate supportive environment to fight off the infection itself. Now, while the cruise ship outbreak is a highly unique person-to-person anomaly, we have to remember who typically bears the highest risk for standard hantavirus exposure. The people who need to be the most vigilant are farmers, street cleaners, rural residents, and manual laborers who are regularly exposed to dust. And a major heads up, anyone tasked with cleaning out rodent-infested cabins or outdoor buildings faces a significantly higher risk of exposure.
As the CDC continues to painstakingly track down the passengers from that May 2026 cruise ship, the larger reality of this virus remains. We're dealing with an illness that has no vaccine and no known cure. So I'll leave you with this final, critical question, based on the timeline we just explored. With a silent incubation period that can stretch from 4 to 42 days, if you were exposed, would you recognize the signs in time to seek that life-saving, immediate ICU care? It's a question that reminds us why understanding these medical mysteries isn't just fascinating, it's absolutely essential. Thanks for joining me for this explainer. Stay curious and stay safe out there.